Hi, it's your friend Phil, project management trainer and coach. Today we're going to be talking about how to choose your vendor or seller using source selection criteria. Source selection, in the words of DAU, generally refers to the process of evaluating a competitive bid or proposal to enter into a procurement contract. Now, in the area of government, this gets pretty heavy and intense, but in private companies, it may not be as intense. In U.S. government, some agencies use a 3-step process. Step 1, planning. Step 2, forming the team. And step 3, conducting the evaluation. Let's go through this very quickly. Step 1, planning. This stage includes establishing the evaluation criteria for award and submitting this evaluation criteria to the source selection authority for approval before it makes its way into the RFP. Stage 2, forming the evaluation team. This stage includes determining the specific teaming approach to be used, nominating team members and selecting supporting contractor personnel, briefing panel members on their responsibilities and distributing information to them, and convening the evaluation panel. Step 3, conducting the evaluation. This step is tailored depending on the source selection analysis to be used. Is it going to be trade-off? Is it going to be the least cost, or what have you? So, in summary, the recipe for a successful proposal evaluation is as follows. Appropriate, well-defined evaluation criteria. Secondly, evaluation rating standards that are uniformly applied by those evaluators. Also, a careful review of the language to identify any trickery that may indicate any increased cost or risk to the buyer, and also a fully documented evaluation finding. Now, not every company has the time or the resources to engage in such an elaborate and extensive proposal evaluation. So I'm going to give you the top of the waves. We're going to take a look at just the analysis in the world of the PMI. So let's take a look at some of PMI's guidelines as to how to choose your seller. Now, bear in mind that the word seller is used in place of vendor or contractor. It's necessary to review the prioritization of the competing demands for the project before deciding on the selection method. In organizations where there is a lot at stake for the seller, this could get pretty intense very quickly, especially when those sellers are in some way related to the people making the final judgment call. It is advised that in instances like this, people who are directly attached to those sellers by way of having shares in the company or relations of those sellers recuse themselves from the bidding process. Since competitive selection methods may require sellers to invest a large amount of time and resources upfront, it's good practice to include the evaluation method in the RFP, RFQ, RFI, or any other document being sent out, so that bidders understand how they will be evaluated. So let's take a look at the commonly used selection methods. The first one is least cost. Of course we know least cost. We love least cost. We love to choose that seller who comes in low. The least cost method, however, may only be appropriate for procurement of a standard or routine nature, where well-established practices and standards exist. And for this reason, when practiced in government space, this could go by the name lowest price technically acceptable, LPTA. The award is made to the offerer whose price is lowest among all proposals that were deemed to be technically acceptable. LPTA does not permit trade-offs between cost and technical factors. So, going back to what the PMI calls this, the lowest cost, in order to practice this type of selection, there needs to be a well-defined deliverable in the bid documents. If you're choosing the lowest bidder, make sure that those requirements are well understood and defined across the board. This is used a lot in government, and in these government contracts, for example, those we as a company have bid on, The requirements are pinpoint precise and very exact. There is very little room for misunderstanding in those types of contracts. There are line items for all of the deliverables, and every single piece is clearly outlined, so we can learn from how the government does business in a pinpoint precise fashion. When using the least cost method, ensure that there is a well-defined outcome outlined in the procurement documents being sent to the prospective sellers. The next source selection analysis method is qualifications only. The qualifications only selection method applies when you've got a time crunch and cost of a full selection process. The whole dog and pony show would not make sense because the value of the procurement is relatively small. The buyer establishes a shortlist and selects the bidder with the best credibility, qualifications, experience, expertise, areas of specialization, and references. And these days, with social media, it becomes extremely easy to quickly detect the reputation and qualifications of individuals in a procurement process. The next method here is called quality-based or highest technical proposal score. In this selection method, the selected firm is asked to submit a proposal with both technical and cost details, and then is invited to negotiate the contract. Only if the technical proposal is deemed acceptable. When using this method, technical proposals are first evaluated based on the quality of the technical proposal offered. The seller who submits the highest ranked technical proposal is selected if their financial proposal can be negotiated and accepted. In this method, there needs to be a solid method of evaluating the technical proposal. Some methods typically used in evaluating a technical proposal could include the specific experience of the firm, the adequacy of the methodology advised or the work plan, the qualification and competence of key staff, design plans, execution plans, and things such as that. The next approach discussed in the PMBOK guide is sole source. The sole source approach is used when there is no competition. Now, for non-competitive acquisitions, sole source proposals are still evaluated for determination of a fair and reasonable price and for analysis of factors such as cost elements, technical and management approach, and the adequacy of the terms and conditions of the prospective work. It is not enough to say we're the only people who can provide this without justifying cost and other details. The buyer should ask a seller to prepare a technical and financial proposal, which are then negotiated. Because there is no competition, this method is only acceptable when properly justified and should be viewed as an exception. The final approach discussed here in the PMBOK guide is fixed budget. The fixed budget method requires disclosing the available budget to invited sellers in the RFP and selecting the highest ranking technical proposal with the budget. Because sellers are subject to a cost constraint, they'll adapt the scope and quality of their offer to that of the budget. The buyer should therefore ensure that the budget is compatible with the scope of work and that the seller will be able to perform the tasks within the budget. This method is appropriate only when the SOW is precisely defined, no changes are anticipated, and the budget is fixed and cannot be exceeded. And that concludes the types of source selection analysis discussed in the PMBOK guide. Now, outside of the PMBOK guide, another method similar to some of these is known as trade-off, and the trade-off method is used when it is in the buyer's best interest to consider award to other than the lowest price offerer or to those other than the offerer given the highest ratings for technical management, past performance, or other non-cost or price factors. Under the trade-off approach, the buyer evaluates both cost or price and other performance factors, and the award is made to the offerer whose proposal offers the best value to the buyer, considering trade-offs between price or cost and other factors. All evaluation factors and significant sub-factors that will affect contract award and their relative importance must be clearly stated in the solicitation. In reality, there could be several other terms given to these source selection analysis types, but in general, these are the overarching ones. I hope that gave you some more clarity on source selection analysis discussed on page 473 and 474 of the PMBOK Guide 6th edition. Remember, for more project management training and coaching, visit www.praizion.com. Remember to hit like and subscribe and share this with your friends. All the best in your project management, and bye for now.